All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the City Council meeting for Thursday, April 8th, 2021. We'll start with the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Acting Mayor Brungard,
Here.
Councilor Drebin. Here. Councilor Gilgan.
Here.
Councilor Goulart,
Present.
Councilor Newman,
Here.
and Councilor Paulson.
Here.
And you have 6 councilors present, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the report from the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office.
Deputy Grant, Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, to go over the crime statistics for March 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2021. For aggravated assaults, there was 0. For burglaries of businesses, there was 1. For burglary of residents, there was 0. For larceny or theft, there was 0. For motor vehicle thefts, there was 1. For rapes, there was 0. Total crimes for the month were 2. If you keep going down into the second section, for disorderly conduct, drug laws, DUI, forgery, fraud, liquor laws, runaway, sex offenses, 0 as well. There was 1 assault. There was no stolen property, no trespassers or prowlers. There are 2 incidents of vandalism. So it comes out to like all other crimes, there were 3. For non-reportable offenses, there were 5, and for a total of 8 crimes for the month.
Thank you. And Deputy Grant, you're not one of our normal deputies. Who are you?
Yeah, like so I'm Deputy Grant Sheriff's Office. I'm working with Deputy McMahon currently, and so he's one of my training officers. So I'm here getting the full Lafayette City Council experience. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming in. Thanks for introducing him to this experience. Does anyone have any questions for Deputy Grant?
Hi, this is Greg Goulart.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, hi, Deputy Grant. So I have a question about the burglary versus the vehicle theft. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the business burglary. Was that the Harley Davidson that was stolen, or is that considered a vehicle theft?
It depends. I'm not as familiar with either of those cases. But for if it was taken out of a business or residence, that would be considered property there. If it was taken out from the road, that would be more of a vehicle theft. But that does fall in a little bit of a weird gray area.
Okay, I suspect it was the business burglary. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a question. So it's promising seeing all these numbers reduced from year over year. I like that. One thing I see in the community is kind of people's impression that, okay, so these things are happening to a lesser extent, but are they getting resolved? Nothing ever seems to come of stuff that happens at night to vehicles or whatnot. Do you guys track or have a metric for cases resolved that we can see, hey, something really is happening, or we need to put a little bit more behind that?
Yeah, so we track every case that we report on. Anything that's not reported, we go into our basic information system to report those things in there to look for patterns. In regards to Lafayette specifically, I'm not sure all the data how we calculate it there, but if there's something in particular you're looking to see, I can definitely talk to my supervisor about getting you guys that information. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, how can we show to the public, we are closing cases, we're solving them, or 90% are being left open. It's just kind of a recurring thing I've been aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you want to make sure that you want to read out how many cases are being closed as opposed to left open.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, Deputy Grant, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Up next, we have a presentation from Larry Strober. Now, Larry, we have some new counselors, so you might want to introduce yourself and kind of what you do for Lafayette.
Yeah, I will. Move my peace pole out here with me, my 10-piece pole. But Larry, been in Lafayette, lived in Lafayette for the last 5 years. We live on 12th and Wilson. I did some work with the downtown economic development about a year and a half ago. Some of you here are familiar with that. I hope to continue with that once we get past the mass stage. The Peace Pole project that I'm going to introduce to the council today is something that actually started right after Hiroshima, after World War II in 1945, in Japan, where the first peace pole was planted, where there are now 200,000 that are kind of supervised by the World Peace Organization in Wasaic, New York. That's where this comes from. It's a nonprofit dedicated to peace. 3.5 years ago, Al Jubitz from the Jubitz Family Foundation in Portland and Mr. Peace in Rotary. I've been in Rotary for 8 years, been president of the McMinnville Club, been assistant governor for the last 3 years. But Al Jubitz gave a challenge to our district saying he wanted 100 peace poles planted on an International Day of Peace, September 21st. It would be the largest one-day peace pole planting ever. Well, we planted 128. I think we did 4 or 5 in McMinnville, City Hall, the City Library, the Barbary, the museum. But Newburgh beat everybody with 50. There's 33 poles in Sherwood. We have the North Precinct, and all of the 8 precincts in Portland are committed to putting a peace pole in. My last few are very interesting because they come from the district governor in Eugene. They're putting tiny houses to house veterans who are homeless. So there will be a peace pole in each of those tiny villages. The Bybee Lakes Hope Center in Portland, which is a jail that was unused, is now housing homeless. There's a peace pole in front there. Juliet's house just ordered one. We have the ability to put McNary High School Gay Straight Club wanted a peace pole that they could use. We put a rainbow decal around the middle. These are relatively inexpensive. So when I looked at the Abigail Scott Dunaway Park and I was talking to Preston, I said, that's a perfect place for this community to rally around peace and show people that there's a caring. It could become a ceremony that we can invite all people here once the mask disappears. So I'm encouraging the council to look at adding Lafayette to all the other cities. And it's Monmouth, it's Independence, it's Sheridan, almost every community in Yamhill County and in our District 5100, which goes to Seaside, Hermiston, LeGrand. So we have, we're going on 400 peace poles,
Wow.
which I think is a major accomplishment. A lot of them are at schools. Newburgh, every school, which I think there's 8 or 9 schools in Newburgh. We have one at the McMinnville District headquarters. I'm going to get one at Washer if I have to pay for it myself. But they range from 4 languages to 8 languages. Most of them are 8 languages. And it would be fun to kind of work with the city council to identify what are the 8 most spoken languages in town. kind of create a public relations campaign and then do a ceremony when it's appropriate to plant. These get planted 2 feet in the ground, so they're 6 feet above, and they're very visible. And it's, you know, I think when I go to something at like City Hall in McMinnville, and the pole is right in front, so every time you walk in, there's a reminder that we should be a peaceful community. So that's what I'm all about. I'm hoping you guys say yes. I can, if we get a peaceful order, I can save about $100 because I quoted the prices to Preston last year, and I can use last year's pricing, but I can't get away with that for about maybe a couple more weeks, 2-3 more weeks. I'm open to questions. Anybody has any questions?
I have a few. So maintenance wise, if we install a peace pole and it's damaged or vandalized, does the city then take care of that?
Yes.
Okay. And then,
But I have not heard of any.
yeah, I would hope it wouldn't be
Of the
vandalized.
400 that we planted, I have not heard of any being
Oh,
vandalized.
good. And then I don't think we have the cost of them. We weren't given,
An 8-language pole will cost, ship with all costs, $175.
okay. And then the 4-language,
125,
okay.
and it takes about 30 days to get a pole.
I personally think it's a fabulous idea, and I would like to also see one at the community center, because I think that's a good location. It already has a flag and it has a light. So it was something that would, not be in the dark, whereas encouraging some sort of vandalism, but that's our city's community center. And I think that would be a good location, as well as the Abigail Scott Runaway, just throwing out there.
I just got an order from Kaiser. For every park, they have 4 parks in the city of Kaiser. So they ordered a peace pole for every park, 3 businesses in Kaiser, including the bank, a Mexican restaurant, and 1 other business, and then McNary High School. Wilsonville High School just ordered one, Delphian School. So it's really becoming very popular, and I think it's, in today's world, it's nice to speak for peace.
So what about, oh, I'm sorry.
So you said these are the prices you quoted Preston last year.
Yeah, and I can quote them to you, so, but I can't do that in June, so.
No, so do you know the updated prices if we said, let's figure out how many we want to do,
I think it
or?
comes for the 8-language poles, 245, and maybe 200 for the 4-language.
Okay,
They raised their prices in New York, and they hadn't done that for 4 years, so. But it's still pretty reasonable. In terms of putting it in the ground, you just dig a 2-foot hole, put some cement in there, and it stays. There haven't been any maintenance issues in McMinnville and Newburgh that I know of. But we've been able to get the News Register or the Newburgh Graphic out for our peace pole plantings. Like in Independence and Monmouth, we had the mayor of both towns. We had Scott Hill and McMinnville. And we will get some Rotarians over here for that ceremony. And probably the president of each of the Rotary clubs at least. So are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Excited.
4 languages versus 8 languages.
What do y'all want to do on that?
Sounds like Greg has a question here. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Greg.
Thank you. So I see the one you're holding is made out of wood, but I think there's others made out of metal. Is that right?
This is plastic.
This is made out of plastic.
Yeah. I mean, this
Okay.
one-
It's like kind of like the vinyl fence posts.
Yes, okay. That's helpful information. Thank you.
Mhm.
Lee, did you have any questions?
No, I just I think it's a very sweet sentiment, and it's a cool idea. But as far as community impact and us spending money like it's going out of style the last few years, I can't support spending money on plastic.
Have there been any peace polls that, says a local, woodworker or whatnot has handcrafted, or do they all fit the same style?
There's some that are handcrafted, but I'm not aware of any locally.
Sorry, not necessarily locally here, but you know, in their location where somebody says, hey, I want to take a wood post and carve, you know, different languages into it and maybe put some stain on it. That's what I was kind of thinking, that as opposed to, you know, if Lee said the money's the issue, that that maybe we could find somebody that'd be willing to do that in our community as well.
That's an alternative.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, Hillary Malcolmson. Is it possible that if someone chose in the community to raise funds for one? You know, sorry, popped in my head, like,
Private.
if someone came forward to the city and said, hey, I would like to donate. Is that something that the council would consider down the road then, like, to approve it or not? I'm just throwing out other ideas.
That could be an idea.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great idea. I don't think, you know, community fundraising is ever a bad idea for most things, right?
No, some of those schools, our Rotary Interact clubs, which is a high school club, have raised the funds for those. I mean, there have been local donations in West Lynn and in Tigard. So
when would we need to give you an answer by for the pricing that you quoted us the first time, the 125 and
by the end of the
175?
month,
Okay,
end of April.
well, we don't have a meeting before then, so possibly some sort of decision tonight. I think that's probably a good idea, yay or nay on that.
I think the first decision is 4 languages or 8. I feel like in our community, 4 language is seeing more.
I did look into, actually,
You know.
our 2021 census just came out.
Okay, good.
And I looked into how many are spoken in Lafayette. English and Spanish are the primary ones, of course. So those are provided at an actual percentage. And then there are for other language that was listed, there was Indo-European languages, Asian and Pacific Island languages, and then other languages. I know there's a family that speaks German, and we have families that speak French. I can't speak to any other languages that I know of.
Which is closer to 4 than 8.
So I'm inclined to start with, maybe a 4 language poll in Abigail Dunaway. I think it's a beautiful sentiment. And I don't think that cost is exorbitant for what it represents.
I would agree with that. And then perhaps maybe do a community fundraising to get one for the community center, once people see what it is and what it represents. And perhaps
he like one at Washer.
yes, but he said that the Rotary Club was going to. work
Well,
on
one
it.
through Washer, I think, would go through the middle school district.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the
Okay.
budget committee of the school district, so we can put one in the washer. I'll even donate part of it.
What was the 4th language you mentioned, Christine?
So the census specifically lists English and Spanish. The other ones are listed in categories, and the categories were Indo-European languages, Asian and Pacific Island languages, and then other languages. And I think that's because they're such small percentages, it doesn't really break them down at all.
Do we have any Chinese population or Japanese or Korean?
I would imagine on the census that would have fallen under Asian and Pacific Island languages.
We have 2 Korean markets in town, but
Yeah.
they don't live in town.
I don't know. I don't believe one of the owners does. One of them may.
The one at Mills lives.
Yeah.
Emily, yes,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she
I
has.
love it.
Yeah. It's her pets. Her dog's there. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, we need to come to a decision so we can move forward. Should we vote? Can I vote on it? I can't vote.
I like the suggestion of doing the one and then fundraising for the second one.
Okay.
And then doing the 4 language one. Yeah. I would agree.
We could do the 8 language one with fundraising if we wanted to.
I can support that.
Lee? Oh, sorry, that's you. Anybody?
Greg or Lee, any thoughts on doing one 4-sided post at 4 language at Abigail?
I'm opposed to it.
Yeah, I'm a no vote as well.
Is that 3-2?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll plan on a 4 language post.
I believe we have to make do we have to make a motion and vote on that?
You don't have to, no.
It's
But
not an action item.
again, the fourth language, do we know we have a Korean? Is that what you mentioned?
I
We
can't
can-
say I know we have any of the ones that are listed as categories. I know we have English and Spanish. On our census, the other ones are listed as language categories, not specific languages.
Which they would fall under.
Could we ask for some requests from the community? We have till the end of the month to put the order in.
Yeah.
I would hate for, the few of us in this room to speak on behalf of the whole
Speculate what
community.
other people see,
Yeah.
right,
We
right.
Say, hey, if you've got a request, and then based on what we see, if we only get, a couple of requests, that's easy. If
Mhm.
there's, can rank it as, I don't know, that was my thought.
I like that idea.
What would be the best way to get to the community for a response?
I think our biggest pull is social media. I mean, it's not covering all the community by any means. It does have a fairly large,
So would you be willing to put that question to social media?
I can do that.
Okay.
If that's the way we want to go.
I think that's a good idea. So
I think it's really the only way we can reach anybody at this point.
What's that?
I think it's really the only way we can reach anybody at this point.
Yeah, I think it's too short of a time period to mail out a survey of any kind, so. Okay,
If I could help at all, let me know.
wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Finally.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Much
Thanks.
appreciated.
I'll take my pet pole and go.
You need
Very
help?
cool. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation. So normally every year, a representative from Juliet's house is here to talk about National Child Abuse Prevention Month. They're not here this year, but you've probably seen some of their work for recognition throughout town in the form of the small blue windmills that are planted outside of City Hall and the fire department and the blue ribbons around trees. And those are all to recognize National Child Abuse Prevention Month. So each year the city makes a proclamation. I'm going to go ahead and read that. Whereas child abuse is considered to be one of our nation's most serious public health problems, with scientific studies documenting the link between the abuse and neglect of children and a wide range of medical, emotional, psychological, and behavioral disorders. And whereas it is estimated that 1 in 4 children will suffer significant abuse before the age of 18, and annually over 80,000 Oregonian children, 89,451 in 2019, are reported to the Department of Human Services as having been abused or neglected, with 13,674 child abuse victims confirmed in 2019 alone, although many cases go unreported. And whereas child victims who feel understood and supported are more likely to disclose their victimization, seek services to find healing, and participate in the justice process. And whereas the physical, emotional, mental, and financial impact of abuse falls on children of all ages and abilities who come from all economic, racial, and social backgrounds, and these crimes affect many more family members, friends, neighbors, and community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among state and local government agencies, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas the city of Lafayette is dedicated to strengthening child abuse survivors and their non-offending families in the aftermath of crime, building resilience in our communities and working to prevent abuse and neglect. Now, therefore, I hereby proclaim April 2021 to be National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Okay, let's move on to approval of the minutes. These are the meeting minutes from March 11th, 2020. Reading through them, I did see a few areas under roll call where others are listed. Others via Zoom, excuse me. It lists Greg, but missing is Polly and Hillary Malcolmson, Polly Blum and Hillary Malcolmson. They were both present via Zoom. And then on page, it's page 4 of the minutes, page 7 in the council packet. The second section down where it says President Brungart moved to approve the scope. The next sentence says counselor seconded the motion. It does not list which counselor. I did not take the time to review the video to see which counselor that was. Oh, perfect. Great.
That was Counselor Drebin.
All right, so it should say Counselor Drebin seconded the motion.
Yes.
Did anybody else notice any changes to the meeting minutes that needed to be made?
Yes, I did. I have a little bit of an issue with the way on the page we were just at, section 9, discussion items, subsection B, code enforcement. I don't think that's an accurate summation of our conversation. Specifically, I actually rewatched the meeting just before jumping on this, and Councilor Drebin specifically said more time is not necessarily what we're looking for. Councilor Paulson echoed that, as did I. I'm not sure we all said, yeah, we're good with increasing the hours of the code enforcer.
This word's increasing the amount of time allowed to be a code enforcement officer.
I know that in that section, I specifically asked for a description of the job. Every other job in our city has a written description. Yeah, as far as their responsibility. And I specifically asked for the code enforcement one, and you said it had not been specifically written out.
Oh, it has. So I
So,
missed that. But we have all that. Yes.
okay, so that was something that I did specifically ask to be presented to the city councilor. So we knew exactly what was written as the job so that we could work from that with what our expectations as well as citizens' expectations are. So that was something that was specifically asked for that's not reflected in the minutes.
Yeah. Well, and that's something I missed because we certainly have that.
Okay.
Okay, so back to Councilor Gilligan's statement. So the part that says council supports increasing the amount of time allowed to the code enforcement officer if that is what is needed. So you're saying that's not the impression that you got?
I think that is categorically adverse to the discussion we had.
Okay.
I agree with Lee. I think that was suggested and council said, no, we don't need more time yet. We need an accounting of what time is being spent on.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Greg. That's my interpretation and memory of the last meeting was, I think, Christine, I think you asked for perhaps a cost analysis of what it might, what additional monies it might take. But the general consensus was not more hours, more time management.
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, if I can piggyback, because I just watched this. Yeah, I think that was Councilor Drebin's exact words were not more time, but more time management. In addition, Christine did ask specifically for a cost analysis that it would take to either expand hours or hire an officer for active enforcement. And we discussed having that something. There was actually a comment about Preston's look at Wade when he recommended that we look at that for the upcoming budget cycle.
I remember that. Yes, I distinctly remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, so would the suggestion be to strike this sentence from the minutes?
There's a lot here. I think maybe just we should review it at the next meeting. Have it
Yeah,
correct.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over anyone. I would like to see this redrafted. I would not be comfortable approving these minutes as amended with just this particular section does not even touch the surface of what we discussed, and it seems to be inaccurate for the parts it does cover.
Preston?
Well, what I've done, based on the discussion, is increase the hours of the code enforcement officer. And we're being more proactive. And we've produced a form.
Okay, but circling back, we're talking about the minutes themselves, not what you actually
Well,
did.
that's right. That's what I thought we talked about.
Okay,
And that's what has been done.
okay.
I don't know how you be proactive without adding more hours.
Well, we specifically said we did not want more hours. I mean, multiple counselors said that.
What have the hours been increased to? And when did that start?
Our code enforcement officer works part-time. So
It was 10 hours a week before. What's it at now?
well, it's closer to 20. And that fluctuates, but he doesn't go over 20. So more hours within the part-time.
So I agree with what Lee said. That's the opposite of what we had discussed and reached a conclusion. I also rewatched, it's been a while, but for the wrap up, Mayor Witherspoon said, okay, so going forward, we'll require a status report. They said nothing of increasing hours. I guess I'm surprised that that's what came of it.
Okay, so meeting minutes wise, let's, everybody do their homework and watch the video. And then at the next meeting, we can readdress this month's meeting and everybody can give an input after rewatching the video and assessing what was said. You know, in terms of what's been done for the code enforcement officer, that's actually on the agenda later down the road here. So we're on the meeting minutes right now. I think we all, no, that's okay. But I think we all, or most of us agree that they're not accurate in this section. And
So
I,
is it okay to, not to interrupt you, but is it okay to basically accept the minutes without that section so that we only have to review that section?
I don't think we have to review the whole thing.
No, I think we table approval of the meeting minutes for March until May.
okay, I would like the opportunity to rewatch at least this section of the meeting. For sure, to give it, I mean, you know, it's been a month and I didn't rewatch the meeting before coming in today, so. Any objections?
Part of this, Your Honor, is you have a discussion item, which wasn't on the agenda. It came up, it was you know, impromptu. And there's no staff report to it, there's nothing. There was a lot of discussion, there were no council motions. Hiring and addressing the city's needs is entirely within my purview with its part-time employee. I'm sorry if you didn't want more hours. I thought that's what you talked about, to be proactive. How do you be proactive and not devote more hours to them?
That was the entire conversation. That was the entire conversation, is that we didn't need more time, we need more time management.
So
But
again.
we can
this
get,
is
yeah, we can get to this later.
Okay, this
I
is
don't know what that
actually,
means. I don't know what that means.
this is actually a discussion for when we get to that agenda item. We're talking about the meeting minutes themselves, which we've decided don't necessarily reflect accurately. We'll come back to that next month after everyone rewatches
And I agree with
the
you.
video.
I agree with that. I mean, if you explain it that way, I just wanted to not have to rehash everything.
We don't have to.
Okay. Okay. Additions or deletions from the agenda? Silence is a no. Any citizen input on non-agenda items? No? Okay. trucking right along here. All right, down to action items. Our first action item is to declare vacancy on the council for mayoral term through December 31st, 2022. This just aligns with the city charter. When there is a vacancy, the vacancy is declared. We currently have one to the mayoral seat. This will require a motion, a second, and a vote.
I move to declare a vacancy on the Lafayette City Council for a mayoral term ending December 31st, 2022.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Next agenda items are traffic controls at 6th and Market, 5th and Madison. This is revisiting a topic that we discussed last month about changing some of the stop signs. A couple councilors, Brevin, asked for some clarification and maybe some metrics. Before we dive too deep in this one, I do need to state a potential conflict of interest as we're under contract to purchase a property at the intersection, at one of these intersections. While generally stop signs don't change the property value, I guess it could.
Since you're not voting.
And I'm not voting anyway.
It's not a problem.
All right. Preston, do you want to start with kind of an overview here? I know we've got Chief
Sure.
Lucid here to give his input also.
Yeah, sure you are. Well, there were two intersections that the council didn't act on last month that wanted to revisit. One concerns the Market and 6th. The recommendation was to flip those signs to assist with emergency vehicle routes. And so Terry's here to speak to that. The other one has to do with 5th and Madison, the one you mentioned, Your Honor. And the recommendation last month was to make that a 4-way stop. Because really we need to address the concern of speeding, people heading south on Madison. And so that was another one. You wanted to look at that. And with the staff report tonight, another option you could consider there instead of making it a 4-way is to actually flip those signs at 5th. I don't think Terry's has anything to say about that one. Maybe you do. But those were the two intersections that are coming back for your.
I do have to say, I really appreciate the fact that last month, Jim basically said that grouping all of these decisions into one is not necessarily always the best idea. So bringing this forward where we look at each individual intersection was a great idea. I appreciate that. I wanted to say that out loud.
Thank you.
It's really hard to say that in a Zoom meeting.
Yes.
All right, Chief Lucid, do you want to give your input on one or both of these intersection changes?
Well, the discussion, okay, here.
Yeah.
This discussion started with Preston on 5th and Madison Street. You know,
Terry, maybe come over here.
okay,
Okay.
all right.
I
So
can show on camera so we can all see.
that's what. So I will be on that anyway. Preston brought up the 5th and Madison one, and I said, well, being you're gonna jump in on that one, how about switching that one up at 6th Street? Madison Street, you know, if you look at the map where the fire station sit, and a lot of our calls are headed up into the northeast section of the city. We cover some of the Dayton area, so we're going out that area. But you look at how do we get there? You know, traditionally, when the town was smaller, you know, we'd go up out to 99, go over to Monroe, and then up that way up 7th Street. But 99 is getting a little busier. So same one with the East End, we go up Bridge Street, go on, you know, 99 is the one we usually travel. But, you know, with increased traffic, the possibility of 99 being under construction, we're looking for an alternative way to get up to the north end of the community and that way without going on 99 because it's kind of problematic at this point. So we looked at some of the streets and, like Monroe Street, has 4 blocks unimpeded. Madison has 4 blocks unimpeded. Market has 2 blocks unimpeded. Jefferson has 2 blocks. Adams Street has 2 blocks. And that's because the mountain, blocks those other streets and people got the round, as the town's grown, they've gone out that way. So for us, going up Market Street, turning right on 7th Street and going out that way makes a lot of sense. Some of the volunteers go different ways. We're trying to come up with a consistent, safe alternative to kind of going all over the place. And then in Madison, getting another stop sign, Market looked even better and the timing looked right. So that's why we pursued it. Market's getting sidewalks this year. And so that makes it a little safer, a little wider. So Market looked like our best bet. And so that's only 3 blocks of unimpeded travel. So it's kind of less than some of the other streets. So that's why we requested the Market Street be turned.
Okay.
And Terry's not mentioning, it might be helpful, but when they're going to an emergency call, they're following all the stop signs. They're not rushing through that. They're not unduly speeding. They're traveling safely, and so they don't blow through stop signs.
Right.
Yeah, we have to stop.
Yes.
And the siren and the lights is just asking permission to go ahead of you. So, that's why stop signs are important. And a lot of times we're not going to, lights and sirens. So again, it makes more more sense to go up Market Street to get that north end of town. It's a lot of things have happened. It was like, we had a call the other day up in the north where we saved that guy's life, and the police went this way and we went that way, and they won because they got on 99 and went up Monroe and around, and I went up 7th Street and over. And
I mean, they're smaller rigs. They
What?
can zip around a little faster.
Yeah,
To be fair.
but I mean, the point is, we're not consistent. We have everybody flying around in different directions, so we're trying to eliminate some of that and be safe. So that's kind of where we start. Conversation.
Okay. Questions?
I have a few things to say, but I was gonna wait and see if anybody else had questions.
Yeah,
Hi, this
I'll, Greg, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is Greg. I don't have any questions, just a couple comments. I'm a block away from, the 6th and Market intersection. So that's gonna be and I understand where you're coming from, Chief, and I'm tending to vote for this change. But yeah, that's just gonna put a stop sign every 3 blocks. And I think, I follow the stop signs. I come to a complete stop. I don't do California roll throughs. But I realize that there are a ton of people that do. So I'm in favor of this at 6th and Market, as well as the 5th and Madison. So, but I appreciate you confirming my thoughts, Chief. Thank you.
Counselor Gilgan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it makes sense on Market for fire response times. I don't really think it's necessary to change Madison at this juncture. If speeding's an issue, that's an enforcement issue that we should take up perhaps with our larger view of law enforcement things than just adding more traffic control signs. That's my opinion on that.
Okay, I have a few things to say about each intersection. Let me get the easy one done with first. So Madison and 5th, they proposed to put a 4-way stop. My concern is, and some traffic safety stuff I've been reading, not locally, but some different things say that drivers are more likely to be cautious when they know that cross traffic doesn't stop. So if we're worried about people coming down Madison and they know that people on Fifth have to stop, then they're more likely to, not come to a complete stop. That's just, what's been confirmed with human nature. Coming down Fifth Street, you've got 3 stop signs in a row, where the ideal, I think, is right around 2, and that's kind of the way that the city's been tried to have been laid out. So I would be more in support of flipping those signs instead of putting in a 4-way stop. Now, the other thing too is in the city's TSP, I forget what those stand for, but it's the plan for all the streets. It's got arterials, collection streets, and local streets laid out. So Madison and Monroe are both collector streets. Market is a local street. So I understand the need to keep traffic flowing, like what Lee said. I guess for Madison and Fifth, I would think we either don't do anything or we flip them, but I'm not in favor of a 4-way. Now, for the Market and 6th Streets, I have reservations about two parts of this. The first is that we're going to have a 3-block stretch that's that's not controlled. We're increasing that. We're saying the one road over, we're trying to decrease. So that's one of the concerns. The other concern I have, maybe more than 2, sorry, is that as a local street in our TSP, we define that continuity is important, but through traffic is not the purpose of local streets. So we're saying we've got a new fire station, and the fire chief, through his experience, is saying right now, based on what's going on, this is the best route. I tend to want to listen to that, but that makes me think, do we need to think bigger picture? Do we need to update our plan and say, okay, it's been a local street fine until now. Do we need to identify this now as a collector street? And
Re-identify it.
what's that?
To re-identify it is what you're saying, as a suggestion.
Right, absolutely. To say, hey, it no longer fits the needs of a local,
Correct.
but it's more of a collector. So I had a nice long conversation with Terry earlier today about some concerns I had, try to save some time at the meeting here. Basically what I got on board to was, because of all the construction going on 3rd Street and indefinitely through the summer, they can't use that as a reliable route for response. He said, I think this will help. Being such a small fire department with mostly volunteers, it's hard to measure, hey, what's our response times now versus what are they going to be? And Terry says it's kind of more of a feel, and I understand that. My concern is still there we've got a 3-block stretch. So what I would be on board is saying, let's change that intersection for now, flip whatever 6th and Market as a test and try it and see, hey, we're just completing our fire station. We haven't even, pulled trucks into it yet. Let's see how it goes 6 months to a year and say, we need to revisit this and see, is this more of a permanent thing where we do need to re-identify it as a collector street? I guess 3rd Street is increasingly harder to get onto. Do we need to look at getting a fire signal across there that would stop? I don't know if that's even within our ability to pay for that, but if that's what it takes to do it the right way, let's start identifying those steps. So I see my support for this as a temporary stopgap to say we've got a need until construction's done and we kind of get a feel for the new fire station. Sorry, just rant over.
Yeah, that was good. It wasn't a rant, it was informative. Kayla?
Harry has a lot of experience and he says this is gonna benefit, I'm for it. I'm not really for the 4-way stop. And so if that's not gonna benefit the fire station, which is my understanding, it wouldn't, it's the Market and 6th Street. I say we go that route.
I would agree with that. I'm not in favor of the 4-way. And what you're saying, revisiting it, especially
Yes, I
after
agree
the
with that.
99 traffic, is very important, especially if we need to re-identify that street, because now it is a major, fire station. And looking in the future, if we could possibly somehow down the road manage a manned fire station, then we definitely have to address that. Like you said, their feeling for times now are going to be different in the summer, when there's full-on construction and the volunteers have to cross 99 to get there, or maneuver around it. So it's going to be a feel thing. So I totally agree with the revisit it in 6 months
Well, and I think just staying in contact with Terry and following up with him.
as things change. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, kind of a general consensus of flipping Market and 6 on a temporary basis to get us through the construction, then reevaluate in 6 months,
And
end of
then-
summer, whenever that construction mess is done. And then support for also flipping 5th and Madison? Or doing nothing?
I would prefer to do nothing on Madison.
Terry, am I correct that it's the Markets and 6th Street flip that's gonna benefit the fire station for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so that's the one I'm. And I agree, also. Let's see how this goes. Maybe at that point, we need to reevaluate these other streets, but I think we just need to start with the one, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just for clarification, it's right there where the Yamhill County Historical Society is, the old church and the log cabin. That's the intersection we're talking about.
About flipping.
5th and Market, right?
6th and Market.
6.
I'm sorry, 6th, yes, 6th and Market.
Okay, so sounds like a general consensus for flipping 6th and Market temporarily and doing nothing with Madison and 5th. That sound accurate?
Correct, and then reevaluate in about 6 months.
I think from our conversation, it was not just once the construction is over, but once they've had a couple months to kind of get used to, now that they're not maneuvering around all the construction. Is that
Yeah,
accurate?
I think a year would be.
I would say, because we don't actually
No
even
more
have a
than-
time frame for when they'll officially start the construction in town. We've done all these little beginning phases, but or how long that's gonna take. So that might be a hard one to pinpoint a time frame on, but
And that's why I said, let's just keep in contact with Terry. And if anything
Something
comes
needs
up
to change.
sooner than 6 months or whatever, just come back to us and we can address it.
all right, well, we'll need a motion. It'll need to be revised. Let's see. So really the motion without the last half part of the sentence there.
I move to approve the following traffic controls, control at Market, 6th Streets, flip stops from Market to 6th Street.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 No opposed, right? All right. All right, our next action item. Oops, skip one. Is contribution for regional fire services implementation. I think a lot of you probably remember that, well, it came in 2 packets, but the 500 pages were from ECIS for SCI for the regional fire services merging. There's been a couple meetings. Steve and I went to one last month. It was a weekend-long meeting. Basically, what it boils down to is a lot of our communities are still very much on board. They're very productive. It was a retreat. I mean, a Zoom retreat, if you can, whatever we call that, my living room. A lot of these districts and stations, we all work together already in a lot of different ways in terms of education and training and support for each other on different fire calls. And so a lot of this feels very natural. And this retreat gave everybody an opportunity to address strengths, weaknesses, concerns they may have, pros and cons. And so through ESCI, they are the consulting company. And what they weren't able to provide to all the participating parties was really a thorough cost analysis, because each of these districts had to go back to their own cities, their own counselors, and their own boards and decide if they're still interested. And they can't give us a very accurate cost analysis until they have a real good idea of which cities would be involved, because the number of cities involved very much changes how much it's going to cost each city and what that financial breakdown looks like. So for continued services through ESCI for their consultation, for Lafayette, our portion would be another $3,000. And that would kind of move us into that next phase of collecting more of that data. I think what we've heard a lot of, and I tend to agree, is that we don't have enough information to be out. And I think $3,000 is a reasonable amount to find out if it's something we still want to be in. I'll let Chief speak more to anything he wants to like.
It's kind of like a poker game. You gotta find out what could be the positive outcome, and so it's gonna cost us $3,000 to finish out. Actually, it's a pretty reasonable price for us, considering what's at stake as far as our fire department. So I agree. We need to find out what we get and how much it's gonna cost. So we gotta go.
And that price, that $3,000, you know, for us, our portion is actually relatively small compared to what some of the other larger districts or even areas that have multiple districts. You know, you have some of these communities have their city district, and then they have a rural district. So they're actually paying that cost twice, once for each of their districts. So what questions you guys have?
So that number is based on the citizen that it services.
Yes, yeah, they're, well, basically their district as a whole, but also it takes into, you know, square footage, or not square footage, the area, their district, the population, their, basically how large their district is and what it covers.
So we're $3,000 into this from the last,
After,
so we've already paid
yes.
3,000. They're saying we need another 3,000.
yes.
Where does this put us after we get this information back? Are we then ready to make a final decision, or?
Yes, this should be the last one before we can make a final decision in term, because this should then provide us with more finalized data as far as who's involved, what that looks like cost breakdown, what it looked like in terms of, assets. When you take every town's assets and you mush them together and then divvy them up, what that looks like. Just basically provides more information to make a truly informed decision, rather than just saying, oh, $3,000, that's scary, we're not doing it, or I don't know.
Do we have a ballpark? I mean, are costs going to go up significantly, or is it going to be about the same?
So it's really hard to tell, because one of the things that it would involve is your assets being pulled together and your debts. So take something like our bond measure for our fire station, that would then be owned by the collective whole, not just us. Now, for each district, they fund their fire departments differently. We do it through the city funds. A lot of them have a fire district tax. So how that plays out in terms of a tax would look different. And if you're taking away one tax and adding another, we don't know how that shakes out. We know we'd be losing a bond to help kind of buffer some of that.
So the bond would go away?
It would be absorbed with our assets and debts.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to understand how, so for a homeowner taxpayer in Lafayette, would there be any change to the bond that they pay in addition to their taxes?
From what I understand, they wouldn't be paying on the bond anymore.
Okay.
Because it's then owned by the collective whole.
Okay.
Likely would then instead be paying on a type of fire tax.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
Which could
Yeah,
be
so-
higher or lower.
Right. We just don't know what that is, because we don't have that cost analysis, because they can't do that until they know who owes in.
But we would know all of that at this.
Right.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that's part of what spending the $3,000 is for, so that we would have a cost breakdown analysis before we make that decision.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you have to spend money first.
To spend more money.
Unfortunately, yeah. that's kind of
Or if you
how
know
it
you're gonna
works
save
sometimes.
money, like.
Right.
But we've also already put $3,000 into it, and that would have been just a complete waste of time.
Right. If we cut
If-
loose now,
if we
we
cut
lost
loose
what
now,
we've
yeah.
invested, and we've lost the opportunity to move further on.
Right.
Because once they break down those numbers, that's what those numbers are. You can't just, you know, in the 11th hour, be like, you know what, we want in on this. Yeah, that doesn't, it won't work that way, and it doesn't work that
I
way.
can't recall from that's October 2018. Yeah, back
been a lot
when
of
we
stuff since
voted
then.
on this, I can't recall, were we under the impression that we would have the numbers or essentially the recommendation
No, I
at
think
that point?
that was, that initial one, that was a long time ago, that was over a year ago, year and a half ago. That was just for the original, just jumping into the ESCI and getting that initial study done.
Okay, so
Those
we didn't
500
anticipate to have these
pages worth
final.
of, right.
Okay,
That was like for buying into the idea.
But yeah, that was like buying into the idea and paying our portion of the study to get that data from that original study of what that would look like if we were to merge or if various departments. And basically a breakdown of each department, what they would have to offer and how each would benefit.
And Christine, if I might add, the other option though, and kind of likely the way this city might be heading, that's been discussed, is a contract situation. Not a formal merger with another jurisdiction or an annexation into a existing rural district, let's say. But doing a contract for service, seeing how that works out for a few years, and then going more formal if you want. I mean, you could rush right into a district if you wanted, but the contract situation is still an option.
Sure. And it would be an option. I mean, right up until the
yeah,
end.
you're
You
saying
have to
that we
remember
don't
this
have all the
way.
information to make
Right,
a
what
sound
I'm saying,
decision. whether to
exactly.
go that route.
Exactly. We can't say yay or nay on that. And really, if you're looking at a merger situation, that's something that would go to a ballot anyways.
Exactly.
So that in the end won't be the council's choice. That will be the choice of the voters in all of these districts who would be considering that.
And you're talking about going from a volunteer to a full-time manned station.
That
So-
would, yeah. I mean, I don't know if they staff, you know, like 2 full engines and a ambulance here, but yes, it would involve
Right.
staffing various stations throughout the districts.
So Jim, you would maybe not be paying on this bond at that point, but you'd be paying salaries or whatever for the district, whatever our pool would be for the district.
The tax would, yeah.
Right. And I think what I heard Preston saying about contracting, if we contracted, it sounds like we'd be paying on our bond and paying additional for full-time, if that's what you were saying, as far as contracting goes.
Accurate.
So the 3,000 buys a lot of information and options,
It does.
is the way that I'm understanding it.
So it went from October of 2019 to now for the
Yeah.
first study. Do we know this $3,000? When do we get our information?
I'd say 3 months or so. It's not very long. So the
Oh,
reason
okay.
the first one took so long is because it was more than just, hey, we're the people in, let's crunch some more numbers. It was a very exhaustive, extensive study that was done. And that, again, that was those 500 pages worth of reading material that we all got and we're like, ooh. It was a lot to read through.
And so assuming 3 months-ish,
Mhm.
would we then jump into a decision right away?
That's when we'd have more options to look at and say, okay, are we in? Are we out? What does this look like for us? Which route do we want to go?
Okay,
You know, and if it is something that ends up going to the voters, it would be, everyone involved, it would be a cooperative effort in terms of, making sure our communication is consistent and accurate with everyone. You don't have the other districts running around being like, here's what would happen, here's what would happen. Misinformation can be abundant if you're not careful. So a
okay.
lot of collaboration going into it so far, which has been nice. I have to say the retreat, it was nice. It was a lot of good conversation and collaboration. It was pretty neat. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, well, if you're agreeable to moving on, we'd need a motion.
I move to approve 3,000 as our share of consult expenses to facilitate the discussion to implement regional fire and emergency services.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
4 ayes and a nay. All right, moving on to the OLCC liquor license application for the Dollar General. Preston, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Well, you have several of these come to the council. This happens to be a new one. In certain times of the year, you get renewals for multiple people in town, but this is a basic retail license. And really all that we look at as far as the city goes, I mean, is that we would report to council is, is this a nuisance property? Well, being a new building, I mean, we don't have a history of a lot of police calls or, nothing like that. Doesn't apply, basically. So, if somebody came in with a permit to grow a liquor license and they were a nuisance property, we would inform you of those things. Otherwise, we don't get into the applicant's background or anything like that. That's all OLCC does that. That's all I might add to it, Your Honor.
Okay. Does anyone have any concerns about the Dollar General selling beer or wine?
Do we know how many other small businesses in town carry licenses even for takeaway or off premises? I wouldn't expect you to know that, but where we don't have any history of knowing if they're a nuisance or not. My only thought is, hey, we're putting a lot of the city's money into the small business. I can't even remember the name of it, but with the water credits and stuff, and trying to get small businesses to stay afloat during this difficult time. Would Dollar General selling alcohol undercut any of that? I don't know, but it's something that's come across my mind. The other thing I noticed that it says we have 45 days and the application was received March 3rd. Was that when we received that? Or do you know when we received this? Because this could have, if we received it then, it could have been on last month's meeting, but it's kind of a do or die now.
It's not do or die, John.
Well, we either say yes or no, or it's an automatic yes, right?
Right.
Our failure to give support is positive support.
Right. It's regarded as an endorsement.
Sure.
Yes.
Could you explain, I guess, in more detail what crossed your mind with concern of impacting other local businesses?
Yeah, well, I've seen, and I don't even know if it's a big issue, but we're spending city resources to say, hey, small businesses are important to this city. And you think, oh, Dollar General, cheaper, they've got the ability to have sales or cut costs more than a mom and pop or a small business. Again, so I don't partake of alcohol myself, so I'm kind of out of the knowledge of the deep knowledge of that or experience of where to buy it, but I could see people favoring this for the price. I've also seen people say, hey, I want to see local wines in Lafayette. So I don't know, would they stock local wines? It's hard for me to think that they would, being on more of a corporate store.
When I see what you're saying, McMinnville's pretty far away, whereas here with the small businesses, there makes sense.
As far as the liquor being carried away, like a Dollar General would, as far as I know, the Carniceria sells beer. Bill's does, People's does, and the Shell station. So those are bigger business unless it's privately owned. And yeah, so wasn't sure about that, but you know,
I've never
so
been
there's,
inside a Dollar General, so I don't.
so there's 4 stores that, you know, are private or small or in the area that do carry away beer and wine.
Okay,
That's my knowledge. Like, I'm trying to answer your question to the best
thank
of
you.
my ability. So,
I mean, it's probably a non-issue, it's just, like I said, it crossed my mind, like, is this something that we should?
and then we
That
have,
was a good point, though,
and then
honestly.
we have
Well,
places that do.
this is Greg. I think that, didn't the governor also allow take out beer?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
There's more.
I was just recalling, I think the governor allowed bars to send out takeout beer as well, to go beers, right? Or is that just Multnomah County? I thought that was the state.
This is not even on point.
Shoot.
Okay.
Like the growler.
That adds more,
You had to
More-
take your own billet.
that just adds more businesses in Lafayette that have to go beer. Roadhouse, Ken's, if they provide to go containers.
I mean, it sounds like there's, you know, convenience stores that do that and enough places and it's not downtown, so.
Well, and if you look at Dundee, I mean.
Yeah.
Tasting rooms target a different audience than
Yeah.
what the Roadhouse would, and so
I feel like, not that it's a non-issue, I definitely understand the concern, but you know, I feel
think
like,
you're definitely right. It could be.
it could definitely be a concern, but I am just real hesitant to reject a beer and wine sales for a small grocery store. I do understand.
Yeah, no,
You
that's
know,
fine.
Dollar Generals can be a little contested in some areas.
But in all reality, McMinnville isn't, it's too
Right.
far to really walk. It's
Right.
not too far to get in your car to drive
Right,
to
we're,
Winco.
we're a growing community and I
So-
don't want to send out this message that, hey, don't bring your business here.
Yeah, no, that's good. I
we're gonna
have no
reject.
reason to say no either, so it's just kind of posed a question and saw if anybody else had the concern. I have no problem supporting this.
Okay. We want to do a motion.
Jim, I did share your concern, by the way, when looking at this. So that you were not alone in that.
Okay. Do you still share that or?
I do. I think that this undercuts small businesses that have been in town for a while that we have been trying to work with to, you know, kind of brighten up the downtown area. So I still have that concern.
Okay, it should definitely still go to vote either way. If somebody wants to make a motion. Guess I'm on a roll.
I move to endorse an LLCC application for retail liquor sales at Dollar General.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Opposed?
I didn't say aye.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Hey,
I was just about to say aye.
Okay. I'm sorry, Sheila meant to say aye, I jumped the gun. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, all those opposed?
Nay.
Is that 2 nays?
Yes.
Did Greg vote?
That's
Greg,
a
which
nay.
is a
Nay.
nay? Thank you. Sorry, I was a little broken up. Okay, 3, 4, 2 noes.
I was processing for a second.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, next section item. Resolution 2021-02, wow, increasing the downtown facade improvement grant. Preston, do you want to speak to this one a little bit?
Sure, Your Honor. We've kind of floated this idea with council in the past, and we have a couple new committee members on our downtown facade committee. Sheila being one of them, and we met here in mid-March, and that was the consensus of all 3 members of the committee to increase our grant maximum amount per project. And Sheila, would you like to mention a little bit about what we
Well,
talked about?
I was actually gonna make a suggestion, if you could bring out the examples of what the facade could potentially, so that they would get an idea of the scope of what could potentially be done with this grant money versus, so they have an idea what the ticket could be, if that makes any sense. So I
can do
think,
that.
if we bring out that, you can see some potential. An architect looked at some of the buildings in the downtown area, came up with some ideas for improvement downtown facade that would fall under the downtown facade grant program. If you're looking at the difference between a match grant, so that our city would donate 7 and then the business owner would match that at 7, which is a maximum of 14, as far as projects. In today's day and age, that doesn't pay for as much improvement as I think some businesses are potentially looking for. So we kicked around the idea, kicked around some numbers. So we came up with a higher amount that the city would invest. Preston had also indicated that there was money sitting in the grant fund that has been unused since it was founded. So it's just money that goes from year to year. It's just been sitting there. It's earmarked specifically for this. So it would not come out of the general fund. It would not come out of what we've already established in the budget.
Right now, there's 50,000.
I believe so,
Correct,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. You put me on the spot, so I'm like trying to remember what I said from a couple weeks ago.
Uh,
So,
uh,
but here's some ideas, and it really gives you an idea of the scope of the work that could be done and how much improvement can be done with just adding a little more money to the match program and really understanding that it's a match program. We're not just giving businesses a blank check and say, here, it's for specific things. And it basically,
And so essentially with the
Encourages the
7,000, there just hasn't been as much interest because 14,000 is just not a whole lot for them to fix
it
things
doesn't
up.
make the impact that it really does need to have. So,
Yeah, the city's awarded 1 grant and that fell through and with an ownership change.
Yeah.
So and the interest is definitely there and several businesses, 3 businesses are very interested in it.
Could you give us any idea of what specifically they're interested in doing?
They're looking at their facades, their entryways, but also creating outdoor seating, rearranging the parking, all of these kind of things. And
which especially this year, the outdoor seating really makes a huge impact for the businesses, because everything was shut down inside, people were forced to go outside.
But essentially, this is gonna limit it down to 4 businesses instead of 7.
that's correct, if with the existing monies.
And you said we've had 3 or 4 businesses interested.
Yes, and they're, some want to move ahead a little bit on certain things, but generally, they're waiting until the ODOT project is done. Nobody wants to take under construction and compete with that. Dirty, loud, messy, you're not
Yeah,
gonna
so-
do an outdoor seating.
On that note, could more businesses end up getting interested where the $7,000? I mean, I know historically it hasn't been much incentive for them, but after the ODOT's complete, I'm almost wondering if they might be.
Well, I think that would be a wonderful situation for the city to be in, to have
More people.
successful grants already done and more people interested. Wow. Yeah, you'd have to put more money into the grant fund, but that would be a wonderful thing to have to consider, say, a year from now.
Yeah, that's my only concern with voting on this right now. If they're not gonna do anything for at least a year.
But
It
then
gives them a chance to plan.
it gives them a chance
That's
to
true.
plan and have an architect come in and work with them
And that's
as
a
far
fair
as what their ideas could potentially work for. I mean, the whole outcry from the community is that we need to improve our downtown, corridor. And so working with businesses, the other thing is potentially, if you look at the amount of businesses on the downtown corridor, there's several vacant buildings.
No,
So it's not like there's gonna be 9 of them lined up, all for it. And I think once 1 or 2 of them or 3 of them, if you look at some of the pictures, potentially they could see such a huge impact
it might.
with a few
incentivize
businesses
others.
then snowball others. And it's also a thing that if we do down the road adopt an urban growth renewal, they will help facilitate this. So it's just kind of increasing that match grant so that we get the businesses on board to start making some improvements and start working towards that as a goal.
I'm sorry, can you hold, you can even hand them down here so I can see them. We can hold them up for everyone to see. Take them.
So this
These are
is,
just examples of, so an architect came up with these from the city?
Yes, yes, that's,
I just want to make sure people can see on the Zoom meeting too.
yeah, so this is On the Way Cafe, which is no longer running as a cafe business, but
Can you guys see that
potentially
okay?
see.
Greg and, oh.
It's pretty far away.
Yeah,
All right.
my eyes aren't that good.
I got my glasses on.
I can't see, right there, can you see it here? Those are, sorry, I'm getting real close.
No, that's a good idea. Go a little bit more pristine.
Yeah, and so that's American Cafe.
So that's the American Cafe,
No,
That's On the Way Cafe.
or On the Way Cafe, sorry.
So that's
wrong.
On the Way Cafe, okay.
Yes. And then there's
Um,
People Market,
this is a people's market.
and these are just mock drawings from an architect for ideas so that other businesses can get an idea of what they are.
Are these the businesses that are interested?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, it's just an idea.
Sitting below the camera, you get a real good look, don't you?
Well, People's is just changing the paint color, so staying in the
This one
same
actually goes through.
scheme of what they have, the mustard and the ketchup, but using city approved colors. Yeah, and that's Martha's Tacos, which would create an
This
outdoor,
one's Martha's,
which would create an outdoor seating area.
and then you can't read it, but Preston's saying it kind of goes through the different, there's words on there that talk about the different improvements throughout the process. Is this one that they're considering, this type of?
Yes, yeah, and he chose 3 properties. He wanted
I did, thank
to
you.
illustrate what a $15,000 project could do. Because maximum city being 7, about 15. Well, this has been a few years, prices go up. And I know there's interest, but Sheila brought up a great point I forgot about, but this is, would definitely be a program under urban renewal. If that gets created and funded, the facade grant is perfect for that. That's,
Right.
and the success of an urban renewal program can help a lot of these kind of type programs to benefit downtown.
So this is Greg. It sounds like there's potential for a city grant as well as an urban renewal district grant. Is that what I'm hearing?
Down the
No,
road,
Possibly.
No, right now, there's just the city grant process.
Yeah, but if we were to, once the urban renewal district comes to the council, if it's approved, then that urban renewal district would also provide or have monies available for this type of a grant.
That's correct. I mean, you wouldn't have 2 grants, but once the urban renewal is able to fund something like that, it can switch over to urban renewal.
Gotcha.
More long term. The city's general fund in the meantime would be providing the grants
Thank
until
you.
urban renewal was up and running.
Right, I realize it'll take a few years for urban renewal monies to come in. So, yeah, okay, thank you.
How many properties are eligible even, whether they're interested or not, do we know? Is that-
All existing businesses that front on Third.
Okay,
Basically, I mean, there is limitations to Third. Under the core downtown, you can kind of see the commercial zoning there, that's in red. So that's your limits, east and west, and then Third frontage.
So basically from the schoolhouse to the west, like Kins and that
the last car.
Correct.
car lot
That's
down
vacant.
there, yeah.
are the car lots eligible? I mean,
Yes, if they have facade improvements, yes, they're eligible.
okay,
So the matter in front of us is whether or not to increase the amount, is my understanding.
Right.
Further understand from the documents in front of us that nobody has actually successfully utilized this in nearly 6 years. So my stance is let's up the money and see if it helps push this along, because the more businesses are doing this, the prettier downtown gets, and that's great.
Cool.
That is exactly my sentiment.
I agree. Let's give some incentive here for all this paperwork and
All
make
right,
it work.
Sheila, make your motion.
Oh, you're gonna make me do it? You were on a roll.
I had one
Can I-
last question. So
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead.
the original $50,000, did that come out of the general budget in 2015? Or was that, were those special monies that we allocated to the grant?
It was a combination of city's general fund and about 20,000 of it was other grants. One from Recology. And it wasn't Recology then, but and the other was from Yamhill County. So those two grants for this project were awarded to about 20,000. And I carry that over every year because we don't spend it. And then the rest of it was general fund.
Okay. So it's possible we could use or secure other grants in the future to continue this.
You bet.
Okay.
So he's no longer here, but the Rotary, I totally forgot his name, sorry. I apologize for that. Okay, Larry. Yes, so when he was doing the survey about potentially starting a downtown business corridor with like the businesses get together and create a business, whatever. He said that there's also grants that he could help facilitate for facade improvements through the Rotary Club and through other things that he's worked with. So that was a potential way to increase the money put into this specific facade program. So it wouldn't just, by increasing the vote or the money today, if we vote to do that, it would not basically mean that then we have to start forking out money from the general fund. It just means that we have to get creative to fund that through grant programs and through whatever comes up. If we do potentially do an urban growth renewal, then that would fold over into that,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking down the road, but it's a way to spend the money that we have now.
Okay. So if we do this, then we have enough money for 4 and 5 people turn in applications tomorrow for a, $12,500 grant. Is it first come, first serve? Is it, how do we allocate that?
First come, first serve, yes.
Okay.
But they would have to make, like, they would have to have specific things, like a plan. specifically. It's not like there's an application at the door that they just go, okay, I want the money.
Right.
You have to have a specific plan that falls under a specific category. So there's like specific paint colors that fall under the grant.
Okay.
So their
So,
plans come in front of the council?
They go in front of the facade review
Okay,
and award committee.
to make sure that they are up to code.
that's why I
and
just
that
wanted to
they're
make sure
within the
there was some sort of,
Review and.
yeah.
Yeah, well, the city has specific,
Yeah, there are guidelines.
There we go, the
and
guidelines,
requirements
yeah.
for what's
Oh, it says that right
allowable
here.
and what's not.
Yeah.
And then to assist our administration on this, we have an architect retainer who produced the slides. Wonderful creative guy, specializes in downtowns, and he was really great to work with on the last award, which unfortunately didn't come to fruition. But the council created this committee and charged them with the ability to make all those decisions and make the award. So council gets informed of all that, and we have a council member, a planning commission member, and an interested member of the public. We kind of cover those things.
Perfect.
all right. Any other questions? Before I move to approve.
I think.
Counselor Gilligan, did you have a question?
No, I just think we were getting way ahead of ourselves here. We've had no successful issuance of this in the last 6 years. So while I understand the potential issue of 5 people applying tomorrow, I mean, that doesn't seem to be a huge issue right now.
Okay, Sheila, it's all you.
Okay, I move to approve the resolution 2021-02, increase the amount of the facade grant project to $12,500.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
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 No opposed. All right, that wraps up our action items. Moving on to our discussion items. First one up, we have pandemic and policy considerations. Go through each section here. The declaration of emergency from the governor has been extended through May 2nd, 2021. Previously, we've just been maintaining that for the length of the governor's declaration of emergency. Does anyone have any opposition to doing that again? Okay. The restaurant relief program, we've been authorizing on a month-to-month basis. Looks like it's been kind of trucking along about what it was.
Well, and Kevin emailed us the
Yeah.
numbers. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but it's been holding pretty steady. for
Yeah.
Like,
Restaurants are starting to open up, but they are not at 100% capacity yet. What are your thoughts and feelings on that?
it will continue at least another month. Support our local businesses.
Greg or Lee, any thoughts?
I'm okay with continuing to do so.
So am I.
Okay,
I agree.
all right. So that would go through May, end of May for extending or end of, wait.
So we'll just review it at the next meeting.
Yeah, okay. All right, no changes to facilities right now. City Hall currently remains closed. Preston, is there any plan to open it up now that we can? I know initially we were letting one person in at a time. Are we back to that point now that we're in low? We dropped to a lower category of risk.
I don't know. I'd have to ask him, where we're at on that.
All right, for gatherings, the city's still considering accommodations for various gatherings under the state of emergency. The community church did submit a plan to have an event, egg hunt at Perkins Park. Included a plan for restroom cleaning, and they held that successfully, I believe. Do you hear anything otherwise, Preston, on that?
I haven't. I think we tried to reach out, and ask them how it all went, and just haven't heard back.
Okay.
But they were expecting a lot of people.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So,
I talked with her afterwards.
Oh, wait, did they say how it went?
She said they had less than they expected, but still a good turnout. So kids just ended up with more eggs, but it wasn't a small enough turnout that it made it look like a flop or anything. It just, I think it was last minute where people didn't know about it yet,
Yeah.
or they just assumed it wasn't going on. But she said that, and I drove by and it looked like there was at least 30, 40 kids or, families.
Well, good. I'm glad the park's big enough for them to spread out and do that and fun. Okay.
I had a quick question in that, so it says that, the Lafayette Community Church had that, but outdoor gatherings remain limited to 8 people. Is that unplanned gatherings?
That's not correct. I'm pretty sure it was changed to outdoor gatherings is limited to like 300, but 8 people per table.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do we just need to submit a plan for a big party and then it's okay?
Our jam down at the park.
Just make sure you have 8 people at a
There
table.
are some different requirements for religious gatherings too, so that may.
And those may be more guidelines.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Staff vaccination, sounds like everybody's been able to receive vaccinations that have wanted them. Looking ahead, we've been downgraded to lower risk. Restaurants, as we said before, they're allowed to seat at 50%, up to 50 people total, and outdoor seating up to 300 people with no more than 8 to a table. Other than that, I don't think there were any other changes. Any questions, concerns? No? All right. Code enforcement. Okay, at the last meeting, we talked a lot about code enforcement. And we had requested that the city provide some sort of report, monthly report that covers what type of violations were being issued. So in our packet here, we have a small spreadsheet that they've drafted to provide to us. Covers the different violation types, whether they were new. The code enforcement officer handled it, the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, or no action was taken. And it looks like columns for annual running totals. One thing I was hoping to see on it, in terms of maybe a change, was some way to note that if multiple violations were occurring at one property. If you take one property and they get marked for vegetation, vehicles, junk, trash, RV, and trailers, well, that might look like 4 different properties have been cited, whereas really, that's just one guy down the street. And I know we kind of discussed a broader spread and more consistent enforcement throughout the city, not just focusing on 1 or 2 properties or 5 or 7 properties, but more consistent enforcement throughout town. And so I think that would help kind of break it down a little bit and give us a better idea of what that spread looks like.
And we can provide that, Your Honor, with the number of unique properties affected every month.
Okay.
Yes.
Other thoughts?
One thing I'd like to see on here is time spent on various issues, and to Christine's point, if we've got one property, but we say, oh, there's 5 different issues, but we're spending all our time on that, that's not progressing to saying we need to,
But it is, Jim. Yes.
So Preston, to the statement you said earlier, between more hours and more time management, we can have multiple priorities. If we're working on them both at the same time, if I say, hey, I'm limited to 10 hours a week, this needs to happen, but this also needs to happen. Instead of saying I need 10 hours for both, we say, well, I'm going to spend half my time on doing what's already in the system and we're working with those people, and I'm going to spend half of my time on that. And that's really why I want to see the time spent, because then we see, hey, maybe we really do need to increase hours. But until we see that, I'm against saying we need more hours.
Well, I can easily provide you how many hours our code enforcement officer spends per month.
Per issue?
No, not per issue.
That's what I would like to see.
Well, that's too much record keeping. I involve attorneys on some, officers on some, my time, Kevin's time. That's way too much tracking.
So the code enforcement officer should be able to provide that.
He can provide his time.
And that's what I want to see.
Well, that's what I said. We can provide code enforcement officer time.
But I'm saying, I want him to fill out the report and say, I spent 3 hours sending letters, or I spent 2 hours going around and looking. We need to understand what time is being spent in what areas of code enforcement, and we haven't seen any of that.
Which makes sense, because with the properties, the city saying they have bigger issues, there's several issues, okay, how much time is the code enforcer spending on this specific property? Is that why this code enforcer is not coming to these 5 smaller code violations over here? It's just tracking the time on each task, which I track all my time as a lawyer. I mean, it's not too difficult. It's real quick as long as you just stay on top of it.
Yeah, the code enforcement officer can try and categorize, like you're saying.
Yeah, and that's what I think James is saying, is it's got to stick. We need to know how much time is spending on this specific code violation with this house, and obviously with reporting the same house, as Christine had mentioned, we'll be able to see like, okay, so houses that have several issues, because there's about 5 or 6 here in town that I'm aware of, that's requiring this amount of time. That's why he or she is not free to go handle these smaller issues, such as a RV or a trailer on the side of the road.
It's actually probably more the opposite, but
My understanding was the code enforcer was focusing just on these like 5, 6 main.
that's all changed. That's all been changed since the last meeting.
But you've also doubled the hours that we're paying for code enforcer.
Well, maybe not doubling, but yeah, increasing, yes.
So does that still fall underneath the $40,000 that we have allocated from the budget for the code enforcement?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
so we have not increased the money allocated or budgeted for him by increasing his hours. We haven't reached that point where we have to revisit that conversation. So that's one thing that I think is important for the community to know. We're not spending more money, additional money, although it is budgeted for that. It's how much of that is being used that's important that you're asking for a metric for, which I do agree. There's a couple things I do want to say. When I voted to add the $40,000 to the budget, I did not realize that it was going to go just for 6 of the worst houses, which is why I specifically said, I haven't seen anything in front of me of what this job description is for. And if we're changing the hours, then we have definitely changed the job description. So the general consensus is that we'd like to see not just the worst of the worst. That's not what we expected or what I personally expected. I can't speak for Christine or Kayla, but when I funded that or agreed to fund that, I did not expect it to be for that specific thing. So that's one issue. Second issue is I have spoken to him through email. So he messaged me because I had a concern and I followed up with a second email for the concern. So he messaged me. So when I talked about the graffitied recliner, it got moved. I sent an email to Preston and Kevin. I also discussed that there was yard debris, stuff being left. There's a specific corner. I'm not going to mention it for people to go, oh, that's the corner to leave our crap. But there was also vehicles parked adjacent that were flat tires, expired tags that should not have been parked there. So there was multiple issues on the same location. So I sent an email, one thing got fixed, talked to Christine, she suggested a second email. So sent a second email. Follow-up was the code enforcement officer. In his conversation with me, he said, yes, he's checked the expired tags, flat tire, the vehicles did not belong there because they didn't meet code. So he would turn it back to Preston. So if our concern is that Preston is taking a lot of his own time to deal with it, why is our code enforcement officer not able to deal directly with the sheriff when there's a code thing? Why is it going back to you? Because that takes your man hours. And I thought that
I thought we hired a code enforcement.
which is why I think we hired the code enforcement. So that was one big issue that I had, that the code enforcement officer that we hired should have the authority to go directly to the sheriff's department and say, when you have time, not when you're out on a call, not when you're in the middle of an investigation, but when you have time, this, and this are the issues, so that it's freeing up you and Kevin's time. Because why are we paying for you, Kevin, and the code enforcement officer to be doing one job?
Because that's what's required right now. He's new to all this and he's learning and he's becoming much more proactive and being able to do a lot of things on his own. In the future, he's not ready yet for that. So we're getting there, yes.
So therefore, when he is ready, the job description changes again. So these are the
No, it
things.
doesn't.
So how does that not change? Because now he brings the issues to you or to Kevin, and then you make the decision whether to contact.
That would be a
the sheriff's department.
process change, not necessarily a job description change.
But, and the expectations of what we are expecting him to do is going to change. So,
Not really. No, the job description does not change.
so the process changed. I
I
guess I'm
just feel
using
like
the
at
wrong
this point, we
terminology.
hired somebody unqualified to do the job. I mean, there's job descriptions for a reason, to see if you're qualified to do this job, and he's been on this job, he or she's been on this job for a year now.
He's not been on the job for a year. We've had 2 code enforcement officers
December.
that left. So he's doing a fine job and he's gonna get better at it. So he's gonna be more efficient, all of this.
How long has he been with us?
He got hired in over the holidays,
Maybe 4 months.
December, I guess.
So how long is the 40,000 supposed to last us? Because burning through it twice as fast, it's only gonna get us half as far.
Well, I'm not following you, Jim, but part-time, there's enough in the budget part-time for basically the the full year, you know, and that's
So there's enough money from the 40,000 to pay him for 20 hours a week for the rest of the year?
correct. Part of that 40,000 is also for possible abatement costs and things like that, which we haven't ran into yet. But a full year of part-time would run about 30,000.
Of how many hours per week, right? Part-time can be 1 to 39.
Maximum 20 hours a week.
And are lawyer fees coming out of that 40,000?
Not this year, no. Next year, I'll be proposing abatement and legal fees within our law enforcement department. And that way we'll be able to track those costs attributable to code enforcement a lot easier.
And by next year, you'd be next fiscal year, so starting July.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so there's no vote or anything on this. I think we really just want to make sure that we definitely dial in this sheet.
Well,
Sure
it
it
is,
has everything, what everybody's expectations are. I saw the finger, Lee. Please wave his finger.
Yeah, I
Go
just, I have to get this out because I think this is part of the tension on this matter. And Preston is a little defensive on a few of these things, but the thing that frustrates me as a counselor right now is that I feel like we were pretty clear in our discussion last month. And you either, just disregarded what we said or you weren't listening. But I mean, we were pretty clear on what we were hoping for here. And I understand that in your administrative position, you run those employees, but we're the ones that authorize the budget for it. And this does not encourage me to add employees under this kind of governance right now. Like this did not go as we discussed last month at all.
well, my takeaway from last month was you wanted more proactive code enforcement. You wanted a monthly report, and you also wanted an article in the newsletter. In May, we traditionally do a code enforcement article.
But,
So
that
would work real well, for that.
but at that time, then Councilor Brunhart said that she would like to see a cost analysis before we increase the cost of labor on this. Councilor Paulson said that she did not want to pay double the hours for going from 6 houses to 12, and she would also like to see that analysis. Councilor Drebin said, we don't need more time, we need more time management. It was example after example.
Well, and I'm sorry if I misunderstood all of that, but there is a budget for a part-time code enforcement officer right now, up to 20 hours a week. I understood the cost questions to be about next year. Do you want to add numbers for that beginning July 1st? That's what I understood. I did not get the impression that you wanted no more hours of our current code enforcement activity. That's not what I interpreted. And like I mentioned earlier, I think this is part of what happens with an impromptu discussion of a lot of things coming at us. No, not even any council decisions. And I did the best I could. I thought that's what you wanted. I've talked to Christine about it a little bit. I thought we were on the right track. We've had some real great successes in the community. I'm just taken aback by the fact that you think I completely misunderstood everything. If you didn't entail anything about increasing hours of the budget next year or considering that, That's the way I took it, because you've already set the budget for this employee up to 20 hours a week. And I'm utilizing that the best way I can, and I thought I was following council's direction last meeting to be more proactive. You're saying, no, that's not it at all. We could have produced a report like this without doing that, but this draft is, I wanted to be able to capture what all information you may want in a report. Because this is a summary of a master input type of tracking. And in order to get the master right, we want to know, we need to know what you're going to get out of it, so.
If I may say, you've mentioned twice now that it wasn't part of the agenda. I think that moving forward is, as counselors, I'm not sure why James requested it to be part of the discussion or added to the discussion, but I can say that I was going to ask for it to be part of the discussion because it's a major issue from the citizens are saying they want to know why code enforcement is complaint driven. They want to know how it works. And so that's what, as counselors, that's what we're hearing. So we have every expectation, because we work for the citizens, to bring that to a discussion, whether it's part of the agenda, added or not. And I think having conversations going forward on any and all topics that are brought up from the citizens moving forward, that's how this is going to look. It doesn't matter if it comes to a vote or not, just having a general consensus of this is a problem. We need to discuss it. We need to have a plan of action and move forward. And that's where this is coming from. So
And that's what happened. That's what happened.
So
I just wish that plan of action was more consistent with the conversations we had.
I'm still unclear about some things.
So moving forward, not to take your position because you're the mayor, but moving forward, Lee, do you have any ideas or what you would like to see moving forward? Because the plan of action is not what you had in mind.
Yeah, it's just a matter of listening more closely to what the counselors are saying, apparently, because I just watched it again before this meeting. It was pretty clear cut, the opinion of the council. And so I don't know, I assume the minutes are not written from memory. So it just blows me away that the minutes were so categorically adverse to the discussion. But we just need more attention to detail. Because that conversation was clear.
Yeah, and this is Greg. I watched the meeting on Saturday, specifically the ordinance piece, and I concur that the minutes do not reflect the conversation that was held. It was pretty specific, more time management, not more hours. And so, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Lee. I think, I think it should have been more detailed, reflective of the conversation last month.
I'd like to say, Preston, as Sheila said, you keep saying this was unexpected. I emailed you previous to last meeting saying I will be requesting this. I posted it on Facebook saying I have requested it. I don't know what else I could have done other than to get it on the agenda, because at that point, I believe the agenda was already out. So no, there was no formal decision, but it wasn't just a willy-nilly, let's talk about code enforcement. There's a real problem. We need to set some things straight. And the other thing, I totally agree with what Lee said. The conversation and the way the minutes were captured are completely different. And let's use this as a learning experience. The council needs to be very, very precise in exactly what we expect. But if there's questions, you said you did the best you could. That to me sounds like you maybe had some bit gray areas that we need to circle back on. I'm not going to speak, more to that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. The other thing, you keep saying we've got money's budgeted for 20 hours a week. the consensus from last meeting was it's at 10 hours. We don't need more until we see how it's being spent. We just talked about, the grant committee. We've had monies budgeted since 2015, but doesn't mean we have to spend it. If we don't spend it this year, then we'll have more to do, later with what we need. I don't want to burn through $40,000 twice as fast just because we can. I want to see how it's being spent. I want to see some results. Frankly, I'm disappointed that we don't have any numbers a month after we had our first discussion. And I don't want to wait until May to have numbers before us.
Well, and I addressed this at the last meeting too, Jim. And getting back to the not spending money additional, again, I thought you were completely talking about next fiscal year, not current budget. So maybe that's my mistake, it must be. But I thought you're completely talking about next fiscal year as far as whether you want more hours or not currently.
So moving forward, perhaps let's have a very specific before next meeting, we need to have this, and this laid out so that there is absolutely no confusion, because obviously there's some disagreement and some feelings about things. So moving forward, how do we move forward? Because
Okay.
he's increased the hours.
Right. Here's how we move forward. We're gonna go around the room and everybody's gonna give a high level bullet point of what they want to see at the next meeting on this topic. A high level bullet point, I'm talking like one sentence on each, whatever item it is. We don't need this long drawn out explanation of why you want it. What is it you want to see exactly? Whether it's a change to this form, specific data, what are you looking for? And your time frame. Is it the next meeting? Are you asking for certain data to be emailed to you before then? What is that? So I'm gonna start with Zoom. Lee, you want to start?
No, I think that the last meeting was pretty clear, and I think we made our opinions clear here. That you could probably just watch the last meeting to see what people wanted.
So you don't want to clarify any bullet points right now?
No, I think that folks here will cover the same stuff.
Okay,
Greg?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I heard six offensive houses or properties, 10 hours, approximate 10 hours a week. And I heard that we want more time management. If those 6 houses are in the works, then our expectation is the ordinance officer is spending other time on new nuisances within the 10-hour per week time frame while these other things are working their way through the process. He's got time to do other things.
Correct.
So would your request be a breakdown of what the code enforcement officer is doing in 10 hours?
Yeah, I would like to see how many, properties he's working on, unique properties. And, I don't know if that's a weekly or a monthly report, but, I'm with Jim on that and what the, details are, and I don't want 5 listed for one property. I want to know that this one property has these 5 issues and this property only has 1 issue. I'd like to see, how many properties are being worked on, because there's more than 6 in town.
Perfect.
So can I make a quick recommendation to make this easier? I recommend that we have the house listed in a section where the violation type is included, where it can just be checked. So that way we're not.
What I don't
having
want to see are
several.
addresses though.
No, we don't have,
Because
it
it's
could be
We can have
house
property
one.
A or B, yeah.
Exactly, but then, because the concern was, how do we know if there's 10 houses with this issue? But 4 here, stop 4 include the house here with the
Right.
10 issues. So if we just split it down, essentially take this, turn it into property A,
Uh-huh.
property B, but then include a section to checkpoint the violations. And each one, I think that's gonna make this easier and more clear too.
And then you
And
can
easier
go
on the
house
staff.
A continued from last month to, if it's still an issue.
Aside from breaking up how many unique properties there are and what those specific violations look at, do you have any other requests or recommendations?
The specific job description and steps, I guess, to resolvement, because he's saying that he's not ready to go directly to the sheriff, but when is he going to be?
No,
What
he
is that
does,
looking at?
I'm sorry.
For me, that's
Like
specifically,
his orientation process and where he's at in it. And
well, not necessarily
able
even
to do
that,
his
just
full
jobs,
scope of
just job description and steps taken to actions. Like,
what he does.
yeah,
Like what's expected of his job?
yeah, and,
Okay.
you know, like if he has to continue to go to Preston with the violations, and then Preston takes his hours that comes out of his salary towards that, then we are actually spending more than the 40,000
Mhm.
for the
Absolutely.
budget. So that is a condition, that's an issue for me, that I originally assumed that the 40,000 would take some of Preston's time so he could manage it elsewhere and let code enforcement take care of that. Having a conversation with the specific code enforcement officer, that is not how it is working currently, which surprised me. So,
But the description that you laid out is exactly where we want to be.
I'm not disputing that, but like,
So you'd like to see the job description.
correct.
So that could be something that could be emailed out, right?
You bet.
Right, yes, and then the steps taken so that we know where he's at.
Add that to your list of things to email.
And a lot of this is timing. You know, I pleaded with council last month, that this is a huge policy change. And we're gonna do the best we can, but we are overloaded right now. You've got a budget coming at you in 2 weeks. I'm way behind. You know, I am your personnel director, your community development director, public works director, finance director, and your city administrator. And right now, a lot of what I would be doing on this, I've had to push to Kevin and just say, run with it, because I am overloaded completely right now. My busiest 2 weeks of the year are right now. I ask council, please work with me here, because this is the biggest stressful point of my year, every year. And we've been proactive on this. We've done a lot of work. There's a lot of success stories out there that maybe you don't know about, maybe you should. But dealing with the most difficult properties has taken months. We've had some wonderful successes. This had nothing to do with council last month. That's been ongoing. We always do code enforcement, but it's been complaint driven for 10 years. That all changed last month.
Well, I guess that's what we're asking for, though, is this is like success stories would be actually written down, I mean, and tracked that it is taken care of. The
Well,
two
I-
vehicles I complained about are gone. So
I don't know if this report's gonna tell you too much success.
is there a
other than-
specific reason why the code enforcement officer can't come to meetings and give his report like the sheriff's department does, like Terry does for the fire department?
Then we'd be paying more money, Jim.
Sounds like we have it budgeted.
I'm asking, I mean, that would
I
be
think
something. that we would
eventually
like
that could happen, yes. All of that could happen. And we're off to a great start on this, and we worked hard on this. And I'm just really taken aback that that's not what you wanted. But I can't lift a finger on this for the next 2 weeks. We're gonna give you a report next month. I asked you last meeting, no, we're not gonna do a weekly report. That's too much damn work. But a monthly report is reasonable, and we'll have that for you.
But we shouldn't have to wait 2 months for a monthly report. And it will have been 2 months by that point since we asked.
That's entirely reasonable, Jim. I'm not Superman, and neither is your staff. This is our busiest time of year. We're doing the best we can. That's too much. We've had this conversation offline. It's too much. You're getting, what I thought was everything you wanted. With more proactive work, which we've done a lot, and a monthly report, and the newsletter article coming up. I'm sorry, I had it so wrong. I thought that's what you wanted. All the budget numbers, I thought you thought we're dealing with next fiscal year. I was planning on presenting that to the budget. What do you want to do? Da, 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 da. That's not what you want at all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, so what do you want now? aside from the report,
I'm trying to
You want
get
to-
high level
so-
bullet points
yeah,
right
So
now.
let me get my bullet points
Stop,
out. Let me get my bullet points out. Is it on me now?
please.
Okay, in addition to what Kayla said about per property and moving all these rows into checkbox columns,
great idea.
I want to see time spent on each property. And the code enforcement officer should be able to say, I spent a half an hour on that. If he could carry it around on a clipboard and just jot down, hey, this is the next property, this is the thing, okay, I spent. It should be straightforward.
I've noted that.
You know.
I've noted that.
The other thing I want, as per last month's discussion, I think we should return their hours to 10 hours a week until council directs otherwise.
Kayla, did you have any high level bullet points down?
I'd just like a section added to the monthly report where we're seeing how many of the complaints that are looked into are based on complaint driven as opposed to the code enforcer
That's a
finding
good
on
suggestion.
their own. Because one of the biggest complaints by the city is that this is complaint driven, and when I voted in favor of this, my understanding was code enforcer was gonna go out, find this, which was going to alleviate a lot of the complaints which were falling on you and Kevin. And so I think it's important to see, okay, is this still an issue just based on, or solely based on complaint driven, or is this, the city solving the issues before the citizens have to take time out of their day?
Because the citizens are
calling.
specifically asking for it not to be complaint
And
driven.
that's my point. That's why I
Correct.
voted, partly why I voted in favor of this.
Okay, we have 5 bullet points here, and we can break them up by a time frame to help one, break it up, recognizing that you have a high burden right now with the budget due. So let's break it down by what we want and a time frame for it. I think something that could probably happen pretty quickly with minimal effort would be just emailing out the job description and the steps for action that the code enforcement officer takes. Steps for action being, I see a violation, am I writing them a ticket myself? Am I reporting it to Preston so he gets involved, or am I reporting it to the Yamhill County Sheriff's? So that can go out in an email. And then returning the code enforcement officer to 10 hours a week until council decides otherwise. Is everybody agreeable to those 2 actions happening immediately? Or this week, or next week for the email? Is anyone opposed to that time frame for those 2 bullet points?
No, I think everything else can hold off. until
Okay,
the-
the other 3 bulleted points we've got they're all revisions to this. So adding how many unique properties and each citation for each unique property, the time spent on each of those properties, and whether or not the enforcement was complaint driven or enforced. That I think is reasonable to expect on the report, a newly revised report form with data next month. But don't bring us another draft next month. Bring us an actual, I feel like you can incorporate these and make it work
You bet,
and bring one with data
correct,
for the May meeting.
yes.
Is that acceptable time frame? It gets you 3 or 2 weeks right now. You can let the code enforcement officer know what data he should be collecting so that after the budget is your end of the budget, I know it won't be done, but your 2 weeks are done. You and Kevin could start throwing it into an Excel database. I mean, Excel spreadsheets are relatively easy to build. And as long as he's collecting the data, then at that point, it's just throwing the numbers on a computer. Is a month a reasonable time frame for those last 3 bullet points?
Well, a month from today. Well, I think, that's, we can work on those points for the summary report. I don't see a problem, but, when you going backwards from today is gonna be a little problem.
I don't think you have,
So it has a little disjointed,
I don't think you
forward
have to backtrack data. If you don't have the data, we don't want you making up the data or trying to gather the data, right? I don't want him estimating how much time he spent on these things. I want actual figures. I think everyone would agree.
Yeah, we can go forward with that.
So only true data that is real and being actively gathered, not trying to guess things or pile it up from the month previous. It's,
But the data gathering would start
no,
immediately,
yeah,
right? Yes.
I feel like that's a directive you can give them, please keep track of these things.
You bet.
Does that seem reasonable?
Yes.
Does that seem reasonable to the council?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Does anyone have anything else to add before we move on?
Nope.
Perfect. All right, Public Works report. Did everyone get a chance to look over it, and do you have any questions? Okay. Fire report. Terry, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No.
You sure? Okay.
She's like, I'm done talking.
When are we moving into the new fire station?
We're waiting on a few little things like electricians, a couple valves, a couple lights. We're waiting on our architects to give us the thumbs up on the building and process the front list, and that's it. As far as I know.
What's the time frame?
I haven't really talked to the architects and the electricians are kind of on their own schedule. They're critical, so any
Okay, that's better than any months now. I'll take it.
day.
All right, did anyone have any questions on fire? Did anyone have any questions on the accounts payable admin reports? Do we have any committee reports? I don't think we have any, right? Okay. Any counselor reports?
We covered that.
Hi, this is Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Oh, Susan.
Well, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate time, but I just wanted to really talk about the Pioneer Park 6th Street secondary gate opening up and the issues, all the issues that caused just because there was a lack of notice. If you follow Facebook, there was a major issue with the folks on 6th Street there, and the sheriffs were involved. Those folks on the Lafayette side put out pieces of wood across the road to slow traffic down. And I know that gate doesn't open that frequently. I can't remember another time that it was opened in my time here. So I know it's very rare for that to open, but it is an emergency gate. And the folks in Pioneer Park had at least 2 or 3 days notice via email that they were going to have to use that gate. And going forward, if that gate is to be opened and used again, I would like the folks on 6th Street, that first block within 6th Street there, to be notified in advance as well. It caused a big disruption in that whole area of town, and it was almost like a them against us type of a mentality over there. So just going forward, I would hope that we could have some more communication, door hangers or knocking on the doors of those 6 or 8 houses within that first block there. I think the citizens there would appreciate that.
Greg, thank you very much for bringing that up. You're right. That was not pretty at all, the way that unfolded. I wish there had been notice. I wish notice had been provided to the city that those gates were going to open. I think we could have been more proactive in getting the sheriffs on board earlier. I know they did eventually start going out there and issuing citations and get the boards out of the road for people's safety. But yeah, you're right. It was kind of a us versus them mentality, which is really unfortunate because I mean, really, we're all part of one community, right? And it's unfortunate this one gate made such a huge difference. Yeah, Preston, I know you and I talked about this a bit, and you spoke to administration moves that you can make.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And Greg sent me a real nice note about it, and we certainly can address that, Greg. And you can't, for future, you can't really, it's not really something to like write an ordinance for. You've got a unique situation here There's no other place in the city that's like this. Well, there could be in the future, but generally subdivisions will all have two entrances,
Right.
but what this seems to be lend itself to is an administrative regulation that requires noticing once we find out. Like Greg mentioned, counsel the first block of residents there. And our law enforcement was notified the first day. I think one of the deputies mentioned to me they did pinch somebody. I don't know what happened the rest of that day, or it was 2 days they were out there, but public works, fire, and law enforcement, that sort of thing. And so I've done a number of administrative regulations, and this lends itself to that, so that staff knows that when we do hear a notice of that, and we can act accordingly. You're not going to get true emergency type of things. We may get notice, we may not. It's a courtesy thing. I can talk to the owners about how it's important to let the city know. There could be true emergencies out on 99 or something. You have to reroute. You have to enter with an emergency vehicle. I mean, those things could happen.
I don't think that is what.
That was not the case here,
whatsoever.
right?
I'm upset about the possibility that there could potentially be an emergency vehicle going past their house at a safe speed to get to another emergency if something should happen in the future. What this came down to is a lack of communication from obviously the people that knew that the gate was going to be open, because they notified those people, not notifying the rest of them. It just made it seem to the citizens that they didn't matter just because the gate can open and they have the ability to do that. They should still show respect to the people on the other side of the gate. And that's what it comes down to.
That's correct. My only point is that's not going to apply maybe to every situation that comes up.
Right.
Something like this that is more planned because of the paving, that you would expect that, and that is that's how we could address those situations and notifications
Moving forward.
in the forward.
If there were an emergency situation that the gate needed to be open, a tree falls across 99 and they've got to detour traffic through that, sure, that's great. I don't think maybe people will complain, but it's justified, right? We can't give notice to a tree falling across 99 and blocking a road. But I think when it is pre-planned and there's time for notification, it's appropriate to require they do so. I think so.
Well, not require them to do so, but to request.
Request them to do so.
Yes,
Hopefully the owner's
you bet.
agreeable.
Was
She's
the,
reasonable. I feel like she would be.
was the street closure, did we have to issue a permit? That came up earlier, but was there a permit issued, or they just,
There was
close the
no
road.
closure. So that's a private drive into Pioneer Park. And so basically the entrance into Pioneer Park's a private drive. That's what they closed because of the Dollar General paving.
okay,
Now Pioneer Park has a separate
Right,
that
right.
emergency one. So basically because their entrance was closed, they opened the gate to use that emergency access and de-access.
okay. I didn't
That's
realize
their
that was a
way in.
private drive there, the Dollar
It's private
General's on.
property.
Okay,
And I don't know if that's ever been open. In the
I've
10
never
years
seen
I've
it.
been here. That might have been the
Yeah.
first time.
I've never seen it
Which is
open.
why it made it a bigger.
14
issue for the
years.
People that live there.
Right.
Right.
To be on a dead end street to all of us on a through street, that's a very big change in traffic flow patterns. And if you've got kids that are used to running around in this dead end street and riding their bikes in this dead end street, and all of a sudden you got people flying down at 40, that's a pretty significant change and probably pretty shocking, I would imagine, and upsetting. Yeah. All right, thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts? Okay. Preston, you're up.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've got a few things to mention. We signed the fire station parking lot and Market Street sidewalk project today. We're going to be going into a pre-con meeting here probably in the next month. Probably won't see any activity in the ground there until probably July, but that's moving forward. ODOT's been really great on reimbursing for the cost of the project that we awarded on last year, you remember. The effects on the budget and having to navigate all that financial work, they've been very good at that. The one thing I'm disappointed in is not about that project, it's about the Highway 99 rebuild. Very disappointed that we're not kept informed. Nobody knows what's going on. They're on their 5th project manager. They've awarded the contract, and I'm trying to get them to do a pre-con meeting here in the city, but I want to do an article for the newsletter to let people know. And I'm planning on May. Right now, I don't know yet, but it's frustrating. You know, they are beginning work here soon, but where? This is a big project.
And when? Yeah.
That's right. So I do want to get that out and inform the businesses and all, but just don't know yet. So
I think it's important to, one of the things that came up on social media was the noise at night, because some of the water lines went in. I know some of the propane lines or whatever was being worked on. So basically you got jackhammers going in at night for close proximity to 99. So letting the citizens know on that street so that they can plan accordingly if there's going to be noise at night, because that is very disruptive to sleep patterns.
yeah. There will be, again, a lot of work at night. And so we'll know those schedules and we'll be able to inform folks like we did on the last one. Got a notice from Recology that they're not going to be requesting an increase for service rates come July. They will be asking the council to increase some of their tipping fees, their tonnage rates for haulers, which is not directly affect their rates to people here in Lafayette. So that's nice to hear. The Washer Elementary wants to do a drive-through event in mid-June to kind of something for the kids, the end of the school year. I think it's great. You know, to work together with them on that, because the last one we did a pumpkin fest just was really nice.
Really well.
And they had tried to do another one over the winter. It just didn't work out with visibility and some other things, unfortunately. But so the bigger question really is the 4th of July. You know, we didn't have an event last year. And you know, I don't know whether we can do that again this year. But I think this event in mid-June could be our good, nice event for the kids. And so unless you think we should be trying to do an event on the 4th of July, not sure how it's going to come out. Not that we have a lot of stuff anyway, but there was discussion about how to mobilize community volunteers. I mean, it's a great idea. We talked a little bit about it, last meeting, and
Yeah, we put that on hold.
Yeah,
Other things that came up,
Yeah.
so.
correct. Well, that's something where we're gonna need help on these kind of things. But I'm thinking this mid-June event could be our kid event for the 4th of July, etc. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
What was the previous date or time frame for the Founder's Day that we no longer?
That I don't know, but can I just say that the thought of not doing the 4th of July pancake breakfast and bike like crushes my soul like to the ground, because that is by far my favorite event in Lafayette. Between the pancake breakfast and the kids doing their bike parade and going to the picnic in the park with the brass band. I mean, I missed that so much last year. That was my top, even my top 5 of things that I missed the most last year. I'm not really ready to come to terms with not doing it this year
I think
again.
it's still too early to decide.
I agree, and I'm not ready to give up on it yet. I'm cool with doing a do an event, whatever that, I mean, I don't know what event, kind of a drive-through event they're talking. I mean, are we talking drive-through event where we hand them stuff? So I can't say, yes, this should replace it without even knowing what that might entail.
And I don't know the details.
I think-
It would be a drive.
I think they did one last year that was, the teachers drove through and was waving at all the.
I don't want to make that our whole kid event,
I agree.
but that's it. That's where I stand.
You
I
don't
would
want to
agree
make
with
it our.
I don't want to make that our
Oh,
kid-focused event.
oh,
if
no,
we don't
this
have
is,
to.
this is just.
But I do support Washer doing it, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just trying to get by another year
Yeah, I know.
in a pandemic.
I know. I trust me, I know. I'm just not ready to let go yet.
We know a lot more this year though, and I think we've got a lot of creative minds that could make something that,
Especially with the 300 loud gatherings,
yeah.
we can probably figure it out.
Well, I do have to
That's
say,
really-
Hillary came up with a great idea of the Easter egg community, like the Easter egg family thing. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do to replace.
But that's what I'm saying, I think
Right.
it's still too early.
Yeah.
Things change quickly, so
Well, and a bicycle parade is an outdoor event. So
exactly my point.
The bicycle decoration is not.
People can certainly
Yeah, you should
decorate.
do it
We
outside
can
at
get
Washer.
creative. People can decorate their own
Correct,
right.
yes,
So I
there's ways
think,
it could be
I
done.
think it'll be the same? No, I'm not, delusional, but I do think that, again, as Jim said, we are a creative bunch. Holy cow, we are. And we've got at our disposal a very creative community, and I have no doubt that we can make something work for 4th of July weekend.
Yep. I would
So
agree.
I would like to move forward with that. But again, whatever Washer is planning, I support that. We, however we can help, great.
Okay, the training officer candidates went through an assessment that our Christine participated in, and out of that process were 2 finalists. So Terry and I will be interviewing them next week. The committee and assessments agreed that these were the top 2, and so that's moving forward. And as part of the paperwork on that, once the finalist is determined and all, we'll have to do an IGA with the new Carlton Fire District for the sharing of the position. It looks like we'll be the fiscal agent for health benefits. So that would be worked into the IGA. That's coming at us eventually here. So I understand it was a really great assessment, and a
There
lot
was
of people participated.
it was a great participation from the chiefs from all over the county. Very, very thorough assessment and great candidates. All of them were great candidates. It was tough.
Yeah. 2 more things, Your Honor. There was a state APWA convention yesterday. The American Public Works Association convention, and our intertie project was presented. Not so much the intertie, but the pump station primarily. You've got the transmission line too. It was very well received. The officials encouraged our engineering team to submit the project for an award. So that opens up here in May. We're gonna do that. If it gets an award, we could even, who knows, in January, send it for a national award. But the overwhelming support for the project, the presentation, now Gordon, our city engineer, he does a great job.
He really does
Yeah.
at presenting, yeah.
I didn't see it or nothing, but other members of Tetra Tech helped, but it was just well received, and to be encouraged to say, you need to seek this award, that is really special. So great job for the team, and it was a great project. It's a lot of work, involved a lot of agencies, and so we're pretty proud of it. I've had, we received 5 complaints about the offensive sign on 7th Street. You all know what I'm talking about.
It contains the F word, if anyone doesn't. That way,
It's,
You missed it.
it's a flag. It's a flag that contains the F word. That's the offensive part.
campaign flag. And so we tell folks that, we can't regulate content. We can regulate signage, size, placement, duration, manner, but not content. And so anyway, that's whether they're over their signage limit yet, don't know that, but don't regulate content. And that, for most people, that was very explainable. One person was upset that we couldn't do something about that. I don't know if you've heard anything about it, but it's very offensive.
I think we've all heard about it, or most of us.
And anyway, so that's where we're at on that one. And that's all I had, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Anything else to add to the good of the order? A motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
I know, that's how I felt.